All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I received an email from Priyanka Banwat. Is she in third year? Do you know? Priyanka, are you there? Can anyone confirm me if Priyanka is in third year? Yes, I think Priyanka has joined. Hello, Priyanka. Can you confirm that you have got both the invites? Have you got the invites for today and tomorrow for both classes?
Yes, sir.
Yes? Okay. All right. Okay. I hope you could actually, all of you could see the video that I had uploaded in the over the weekend, I mean on Friday, because I talked about wells in that class. I highly recommend that you actually view uh, the pre-recorded videos as soon as they are uploaded. I mean, at least before the next class. Otherwise, it will be difficult to continue with the flow. Do you have any question on what I have taught? Anyone having any question?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, Nirul.
How the perforation process is actually done while drilling,
Okay, perforation is not
well
done.
drilling.
Perforation is not exactly done while drilling. So after your drill is complete, okay, your casings are set, okay. After your production casing is set, okay, and then only you do the perforation. So what you do, you have kind of guns, yeah. So it's not literally guns, but the mechanism is same. So it has bullets, and then that you get put it down in the hole, and then you fire those bullets, okay. So what happens, those bullets actually uh, makes hole inside the casing, okay. And the reason for making such holes or perforates the casing, and hence we call it perforation. Once it perforates the casing, the hydrocarbon can come out from the formation to the well. Otherwise, it is a steel pipe, right? Casing is a steel pipe. So you have put a steel pipe between your formation and your well, right? So that will not be able to, it will not allow the hydrocarbon to flow from the formation to the well. Hence the perforation is necessary. Hence the perforation is necessary. Is that clear, Nirul? So it is done after the drilling
Yes,
is
sir.
done. Okay. Anything
Yes.
else? Anyone else? Any other question?
So how are horizontal wells done?
Our horizontal wells drilled.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you want to understand the technology, is it?
Yes, sir.
Well, the technology involved is called geosteering. Okay, geosteering is essentially, I mean, it's a complicated technology, and it's very difficult to uh, explain in a very common language. Let me put it something like that. So, if you want to, you know, so drilling vertical well is actually easy, right? Because it's your here is your drill bit, and it can simply rotate, right? It can simply rotate, and then it will drill vertical. Now, to drill horizontal well, you can imagine that your drill bit. So you initially drill a little bit of a vertical well or an inclined well, and your drill bit is actually put at an angle. and you drill a small trajectory in that angle. And then you constantly change the angle of the bit. Okay? And then you constantly change the angle of the bit. And then the second problem that comes around your uh, drill pipe. Okay, so what happens that you essentially after you are done drilling your neck, so this part is called neck. Once you have a neck drilled, okay, you actually pull out your drill pipe and then essentially have a system which looks like, let me just try to, which looks like, so you have a neck in your drill pipe and then there is another drill pipe, okay, which is fairly long, and it can actually, it's like a telescope again, okay, which can keep on increasing in its length as it's move forward, and then it starts drilling, and hence the total trajectory is done. And how precisely it is done, it's fairly controlled by computer, and this process of essentially reaching to your target, okay, is called geosteering. I know the explanation that I gave you was not up to the mark. So what I will recommend that you can actually look through videos. I mean, it's very difficult to explain the mechanics of this necking. This particular process is called necking by drawing pictures. So what I will recommend that you see some YouTube videos where this process is very nicely explained. So you can write how horizontal wells are drilled, the question that you asked, and you will find videos where um, this thing is explained. So initially, just to sum up, first you drill a vertical well, then you drill the neck by simply have a little bit of a angle from your drill bit with the drill pipe, and then once that neck is formed, you actually send a very special type of drill pipe which looks like an L, and then that kind of drills the rest of the section. That's more or less the uh, story in a nutshell. Was that clear, Jay?
Yes, sir.
But I mean, it's a mechanical process. So what I will recommend that you see some videos. It will be more than reading. I think if you see the videos, it will be a bit more clearer. Okay.
Yes.
Anything else? So let me ask you one thing. Will you be able to, if I ask you to draw a typical vertical well, and if I ask you to mark the different parts of it, will you be able to do it? Was it clear from the video? You know what is casing, you know what is perforation, you know what is production casing, what is surface casing, what is intermediate casing, why cementing is done, what is blowout preventer. You understood these things, right? Did you have Minakshi? Did you uh, did you see the video, the pre-recorded lecture?
Yes, sir.
Well, is there any question or was it clear everything?
Yeah, clear.
Okay. All right, I hope it's clear for you, because it's I mean, if you read books, of course it is given in books. You will find in both the books that I have recommended, you have a chapter on drilling, but it's fairly complicated to understand from the book. So it's important that you simplify the wells the way I tried to do it in the video. All right, so we will continue with wells, but before we get into wells, I want you to be little bit uh, familiar. As I said, it's not geology of fuels is not it's essentially a particular science, and there will be some portions of business also come in to the picture. So I want you to understand one important thing, how this oil and gas business is done in the world. Okay. So suppose you have a major oil company. Okay. So generally the oil and gas companies are broadly subdivided into two categories. Okay. Okay. One are called MNCs, multinational companies. Okay. And of course, national oil companies. Okay. MNCs are, for example, your ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, SR, Total. I hope you heard their names, right? They're all mega giant. They're also called oil giants because because of the sheer size of these companies. Okay. So multinational companies are simply the companies which operate in different countries. And then you have national oil companies. The national oil companies are the companies which are based in certain countries. For example, the national oil company for India is ONGC. ONGC is Oil and Natural Gas Corporation. Okay. Similarly, you have Qatar Gas, then Saudi Aramco, okay, and then Kuwait Oil and Gas, Kuwait Energy, I guess. There are plenty such companies which are actually specific to a nation. Okay, so national oil companies and multinational companies. Generally, these oil and gas companies. So if I look at the total oil business, oil and gas, that is generally subdivided into three streams. The first one is called upstream, then called midstream, and then is downstream. Upstream business means the work that we do as geologists or reservoir engineers or production technologists, okay, where you essentially explore and produce. So you explore with different oil and gas basins and then you produce from them. Okay. Then midstream is where refining takes place. Okay. There are plenty of big refineries. I'm sure you have heard their names. Then sometimes refining and treatment. You heard about GTL, I'm sure. GTL means gas to liquid. Yeah. And this is the place where compressed natural gas is also produced. Yeah, so you have natural gas, and then you you stored such natural gas into You compress them with high pressure and you put them in cylinders like the one that we use for our cooking gas, right? So this is what we call midstream of the business. Upstream of the business is exploring and producing. Midstream is refining, treatment, gas to liquid, compressed natural gas, LPGs. All these things are midstream. And the downstream is actually, I mean, this is preparing such stuff, okay? And this downstream is essentially selling, right? So that involves petrol pumps, aviation, and you name it, wherever oil and gas is uh, actually sold. And also in the midstream business, you have the different oil products, oil and gas products, right? Are prepared in the midstream. So in the upstream, we actually uh, after exploring and then producing, we have crude oil or unrefined gas that goes to midstream where it is essentially processed, yeah, and then processed product is sold in the downstream. Okay, now so we are mostly interested in the upstream business as geologists. Upstream business of the company. Okay, and of course, upstream business is generally, further subdivided into exploration, exploration, then appraisal to production. Okay, and we talked about this while we discussed about the wells associated with them. So in the exploration stage, we generally drill wildcat wells and exploration wells. We said the appraisal stage, we actually drill appraisal wells, and in the production stage, we either convert exploration and appraisal wells to production wells, or simply drill more production wells. Okay, so exploration generally involves drilling of wildcat wells. And by drilling wildcat wells, you actually prove that, yes, under this reservoir, yeah, say at a depth of 3,000 meter, I have oil and gas. Okay, so you just prove it by drilling a wildcat well. And then drilling of exploration wells. So you drill more wells, essentially, to get a better understanding. And then acquire 2D and 3D seismic. That is what you do. So why 2D or 3D seismic is is done is to actually get a full picture of the subsurface. Okay, so how the subsurface essentially looks like. At what depth I have my reservoir, if the what type of trap do I observe, essentially getting a picture of the subsurface, right? Aqua 2D and 3D seismic, that is what you do in, and then finally, of course, estimate type and keep. Okay, so then you estimate your STOIP and give, okay? And then finally talk about estimate RAF UR. UR is ultimate recovery. Okay, so that is your jobs in a typical exploration phase of the business. Okay, so you identify a particular basin, you drill certain wildcat wells, then you drill certain exploration wells, you acquire some 2D and 3D seismic, and then you give a rough estimate of STOIP or GIP, and then you estimate a rough UR. UR means uh, ultimate recovery, how much hydrocarbon you will be able to take out of the ground. Okay, and then it goes through some sort of then the UR that you have got. So let's come to the next phase. Then we come to the appraisal phase of the business. Okay, so you appraise the field better. Okay, so what are your jobs? Essentially, you drill more appraisal wells. Okay, constrain STOIP and GIP. Constraint means, you have a better idea about your STOIP and GIP because you have drilled more wells. Okay, and then of course, constrain UR as well. You have a better understanding of the UR. Then you do some economics. Okay, economics to see whether the UR that you are getting out of this field, okay, is economic enough to proceed with the workflow, or to actually abandon this field for the time being. Okay? So that is what economics is all about, whether I should proceed with the production, or whether I should stop the production right now and do something else. So that sort of economic decision has to be made based on this UR value, ultimate recovery value. Okay, and if it so now this particular economics should be interesting. Okay, so I can give you an example, and it also depends on time. Okay, suppose I am right now seeing, say for example, I am talking about say 2009. Okay, when the price of the oil was $110 per barrel. Okay, and say for example you have discovered one gas field which is of 1 TCF deep, right? So maybe when it is $110 per barrel gas price, it is okay to develop a field which is of 1 TCF, because there is what it means that there is more demand. Okay? But say for example, if you are working in an environment where say for example a few years later, when the oil price is around $30 per barrel, at the same time it will be very difficult to actually develop a field which is of 1 TCF volume, simply because there is not much of demand. Okay, so of course your supply will definitely depend on the demand that you create in the market, right? So if your market is not asking for more oil and gas, then it is not required to develop a oil and gas field which is small enough. Okay, so that sort of decision you take in the appraisal phase of the business. Okay, and then comes the production phase. So what you do essentially, of course, you produce, you drill production well. Okay, then say for example, build pipeline from the field to your destination, maybe where your hydrocarbon will be processed. So build pipelines. Okay, um, at the end of the field, you drill, say for example, injectory wells, injection wells. Yeah. You start with your to do your EOR and EGR also at the end of your field. Okay, you simply start producing from the field. Once you are done with your once you are done with your course, if the pressure is depleted enough. Okay, we will talk about reservoir pressure in greater details. Okay, now what are the technical jobs that are there in an upstream business? And I'm saying this because any of these jobs can be yours as well. Okay, if you are interested and if you want to make a career in oil and gas industry, and I can tell you right now, it's still one of the best paid industry in the world. Okay, so if you want to make a career in the upstream business industry, of course, these are the jobs that could be yours. Okay. Of course, it can be exploration geologist, production geologist. Yeah, what is the difference? I will hopefully explain sometime. And we are also going to call some exploration geologists and production geologists from the industry, and they will give you a talk to talk about their job profile, what they do. Okay, that will happen in this as a part of this course itself. Okay. Then you have petrophysicist. Petrophysicist, they interpret well logs. Huh? Then you have reservoir engineers. Reservoir engineers, what they do, they actually forecast production. Okay, so they say if I drill, say for example, 10 wells for 20 years, then this amount of hydrocarbon I will be able to produce. Okay, and they do some mass balance with mass balance equation. and fluid mechanics, the concept of using the concept of fluid mechanics, they try to forecast the behavior, the fluid behavior in a reservoir. Okay, very interesting stuff. Reservoir engineer, then production technologist. Production technologists are the ones who actually um, help in different intricacies in a well. Okay. Um, I will talk about production technology later in the course, but for the time being, remember they're very close to well engineers. Okay, then you have well engineers. Okay, and then yeah, and then of course you have different types of managers, IT, then your HR. They're not technical jobs, but they're there. Okay. So these are different types of jobs that you can have as a geologist in the oil and gas industry. Okay. Any questions so far? Is it boring to know about it? But even if it is, I thought it's a good idea to know the business about. Any question that you have, that you might have?
Sir,
Yes, Nirul.
hello, sir. Sir,
Yeah,
actually,
Nirul.
nothing related to this job. I would like to ask that how the global oil price is like dependent on production and demand. Does it depend on both, like interrelated, or something else?
No, no, it's oil price is a very tricky thing. Okay. I mean, say for example, the world politics depends on oil price, right? You know about it. I mean,
Yes,
um,
sir.
I don't want to be very I have to be a little bit diplomatic here as well. So let's not get into the controversial topics of discussion around it. But it's not it will not be any harming to say world politics largely still depends on your oil price, and it depends on well, like any other product. It depends on demand and supply. Okay? Say for example. Uh, Till very recent time, there was no cap on the production of what could have been produced from the Middle East. Okay, so there was no cap. So Middle East was producing like anything, and that time the world did not have so much of demand of the oil and gas that was being produced from the Middle East. Okay, and then hence there was a little bit of a more supply, less demand, and that resulted little bit deep in the oil price. But then there has been a steady increase in oil and gas price as well. Say, for example, when America thought of being completely self-sufficient in oil and gas, okay, they had this oil and shale gas boom. I don't know if you have heard about it. Before that, America used to import gas from the rest of the world, but then after they actually discovered these big shale gas plays like the Marcellus shale, and um, there are nearby fields as well. After they actually started producing from that shale gas, they have been quite self-sufficient. Okay, so one of the aims of a particular country is still to produce enough oil and gas so that it can actually export oil and gas. So importing oil and gas is a little bit of a burden on the government. For example, if you compare it with India, India imports a lot of oil and gas. India is not a country which exports oil and gas. Okay, so every country wants to be self-dependent on their energy budget because oil and gas is directly responsible in controlling the energy budget of that particular country. Okay, So every country wants to be self-sufficient in that domain. So there are countries which are already such, where they produce enough oil and gas to sustain, and then to actually export a bit of surplus oil and gas to the rest of the world. But India is not a country where such thing happens. India still imports oil and gas. Okay, so yes, there is a very good relationship between its supply and demand. Okay, say for example, during World War II, of course, the price of oil and gas increased sky high. Okay, during the Gulf War as well, the price of oil and gas became really high. Okay, and when there are sanctions in certain countries, there are certain sanctions on have been in the Middle Eastern countries like Iraq, like Iran. Sanctions, you know what sanctions are, that you cannot export or import certain goods to the other countries. And when such sanctions are imposed on these oil and gas producing countries, also you have a uh, you know hike in, kind of a pseudo hike in the demand, and that is also reflected in your oil and gas price. Okay, that's in nutshell the how the oil and gas price is controlled. Okay, and this is
Thank
one
you,
of
sir.
the products. This is one of the products whose price is decided globally. Okay, it's not decided locally. So the crude oil price is very much the same everywhere around the world. It's decided globally, like the stock exchange. Okay?
Yes.
So your stock exchange also is directly related. You will see, if you can do an exercise by yourself. You can actually try plotting, say around, take last 30 years stock exchange, average stock exchange um, values, right? And then plot it against your oil price. You will see there is a good correlation as well. Okay? So stock exchange uh, rise and fall also is directly dependent on the oil price, oil and gas price. Okay. Any other question?
Yeah, hello, sir. Uh,
Yes, Gopal.
just a while ago, like in April, we heard that the crude oil price become zero or like less than zero per barrel. So what does that mean, sir?
No,
Like in April?
I mean, this was like a theoretical. It was like a theoretical. What shall I say? Uh, Theoretical estimation. You can put it like that. Okay, it never became zero. Okay, it became very low. It actually touched its uh, ever low bottom, being $15 per barrel. Okay, and then people started saying that if it continues like that, theoretically it will go all the way to, if we allow it to go down, it will theoretically touch zero line. Okay, but any product cannot go to zero line, right? You know about it. It's still a theoretical discussion. So it became very low during the COVID-19, because when all the countries were under lockdown, there were no flights running. The cars were completely at halt. Uh, our life completely came at a stop, right? So who would use oil and gas? Where people would use oil and gas? And you can imagine the amount of demand that would have dropped from a regular day, right? So that essentially led to the very low oil and price, which went all the way up to $15 per barrel, and then it again started to come back. It's right now around $60 per barrel. You can check oil price today. Okay, today is $42.61, 45, and Brent crude is $45.34, and WTI crude is $42.61. Okay, right. Anything else? Or the moral of the story, it's picking up again, and it should pick up for us at least. There should be jobs in the market. That's very much important. All right. So these are the typical technical jobs one can expect in the upstream business. Okay. Uh, and then of course, as a geologist, so if I just look at the job of a geologist a bit more carefully, okay, I have just put the geologist in a single bracket, but then the geologist could be a well site geologist. Well site geologist means the place where a particular well is being drilled. Okay, there you support the operation, and that is what we call as well site geologists. Very highly paid jobs, and you generally have a rotation wise job. So you go there for 15 days and then come back home for 15 days. So that sort of job that you do as a well site geologist. Then you have office geologist, obviously. And then office geologists could be of many types. Okay, uh, it can be a geophysicist. Geophysicists could be of broadly of two types: non-seismic. Non-seismic means the ones who actually practice, say, for example, gravity, magnetics, experts in gravity, magnetics, then magnetotellurics, okay, these sort of techniques. And then seismic people, of course, seismic people can be subdivided into in seismic acquisition, where you acquire seismic signal, seismic processor, and of course you have seismic interpreters. Interpreters. And then, of course, you have exploration geologist. And then production geologist. And then you also have specialist. So production geologists typically do reservoir modeling. I'm going to call one production geologist and show you what reservoir modeling is all about. And the first lecture will be by one very senior exploration geologist in one of the Fridays. And the specialists, of course, you have structural geologists there. Then you have geochemists, paleontologists, sedimentologists, so on and so forth. You don't generally find igneous petrologists or metamorphic petrologists in the oil and gas company, simply because oil and gas do not sit in igneous or metamorphic rocks. Okay. Other than that, you have structural geologists, geochemists, your paleontologists, sedimentologists. They are called specialists, and and the production geologists, exploration geologists, they are called generalists. I mean, they do the major part of the work. Okay. and these people are generally called for special advice when they are required. Okay? And then, of course, there is a big bunch of geophysics. Okay, some of them practice non-seismic techniques, right? Gravity, magnetics, magnetotellurics, and there is the larger chunk of people practice seismic around seismic related techniques, and then some people are involved in seismic acquisition, some people are involved in seismic processing, and some people are involved in seismic interpretation. Okay? And then, of course, as petrophysicists also, you will have some role to play as a geologist. So if they do hire uh, geologists to become petrophysicists or reservoir engineers as well. Okay? So the the reason I'm saying you this, that this is still a very lucrative area for building your career upon, and there are plenty of opportunities which you can actually um, start to explore. Okay? Any questions so far? Any questions around jobs? All right. So because we are talking about the business today, one of the important aspect of oil and gas business, and from tomorrow's lecture, of course, we will get back to the technical stuff again, okay? And we will discuss about the actual science of it. But another important part in oil and gas business is called HSSE, which is a very important component of the business. And HSSE stands for health, safety, security, and environment. Okay? Health, safety, security, and environment. And this is supposed to be the at the very top priority of any oil and gas business. Okay. So whatever job you do, your primary focus will be essentially that you are doing the job extremely safely, and you are making sure that whatever work that you are doing or asking people to do is not going to cause them harm any way with respect to their health, with respect to their safety, with respect to their security, and it will damage minimum amount of environment. Damaging zero environment is not possible in oil and gas industry. Okay, as soon as you drill a well inside the ground, you are playing with the environment. So you have to minimize environmental impact. Okay? Minimize environmental impact. But the other ones, health, I mean, you take zero health risk, okay, zero safety risks, and zero security risks. Okay, so with respect to your businesses, I mean, whatever you do for as a geologist, as a production engineer, as a well engineer, your top priority will be health, safety, security, and environment. So, okay. So, say for example, if you make a decision that you weigh your money or your profit more than safety, that is never going to pass by the managers. Okay. people do take safety and security extremely importantly. So they are going to, I mean, they are going to, at least the major oil companies, they actually invest a lot of money in these areas. Okay, they want to have a very safe operations. Okay, so around that, I can you can actually search one video in YouTube called Mokondo, and this is what I'm just saying because it will be very much related to what we are going to discuss in the next class. You can write down Mokondo incident in your in YouTube and see what happened. And this happened in not so long ago. I think in 2011 it happened, right? 2009 or 2011. Okay, so there was a BP operated rig in the Gulf of Mexico, and we will discuss that later on. Some of the technical persons like us made some mistakes, and that mistake essentially resulted in the total burst of the oil rig, which was in the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, around 11 people died at once. Okay, there was so much oil spill that the BP had to clean it up for next 6 months. For 2 years, no companies could operate in Gulf of Mexico. Obama government actually stopped any operations in Gulf of Mexico. BP's share price dropped by half in one day. Okay, its license to operate in America almost ceased to exist. Okay, so you cannot allow an incident to happen where you know people's health, people's safety, people's security, and large amount of the environment is in danger. So you have to make sure the work that you do is well assessed with respect to its risk. Okay, and then you take an intelligent decision. Even after doing such things, you still have big accidents associated with oil and gas industries. Okay, I can give you I can talk about a personal story. For example, I used to work in Norway. Okay, and then there was the oil and gas rigs were like 2 kilometers inside the sea from the shore. Okay, say at night 4 a.m. or so, we used to get into a chopper or a helicopter and used to fly to the rig. Okay, and sometimes the weather could be very rough, and the helicopter does such nasty and naughty things. I can't explain it to you. I mean, if you have to be in that environment to face what sort of risks that can be associated with the oil and gas job. So it is absolutely important whatever operations are done in oil and gas is done in the most uh, in taking care of these four pillar stones in operations: health, safety, security, and environment. But even after doing that, accidents do happen there. Okay, and people die, people lose assets, people lose wealth. So if I tell you, if you lose one well, that means you are losing around 20-25 million dollars. Okay, so it's a lot and lot of money. Sometimes these rigs, the rigs are essentially the platforms from where the wells are drilled. Okay, the rigs are the platforms from where the wells are drilled. So 1 hour cost of a rig is around $100,000 per hour. Okay, and sometimes the rigs are there and they sit idle for 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 days due to unsafe operations. Okay, and then the amount of uh, losses that the company go through. So it's absolutely important, if you are in the business, that you take care of these four milestones. Okay, and please look at this Mokondo. Type the Mokondo incident. I mean, you can write it in Google. You can read about it. You can see the video in YouTube, and you will see why I'm trying to emphasize on these health, safety, security, and environment part of the business. Okay, and this will essentially form the background of also of our class, where we talk about look into the I think the fourth year and third year have done some exercise on the pressure system of the earth, but we will still look into it in better details. We will see how the pressure system of the earth and how we have to be extremely sensitive while we drill a well, and how we can optimize drilling, and drilling through the high pressure environment of the earth. Okay, we will discuss that in the next class. For now, if you have a question, I'm happy to answer. All right. If not, then I will stop the class here. I'll upload the video and I will see you tomorrow.